Hello, audience, and welcome to another book review here on the channel. This one for Morning Star, the third book in the Red Rising series. Now, this is actually going to be a bit of a different review because I'm going to start with Morning Star, transition into my thoughts of Red Rising as a series as a whole, and then end it with actually a review of Juniper's special edition series collection for the Red Rising trilogy. And if you'd like to see those, of course, you can go ahead and skip the end of the video. Timestamps, as always, down below. And Juniper has hooked myself and my audience here up with a coupon if you'd like to go ahead and take 15% off your order of their entire store, not just the Red Rising books. And that code is the Goblin15. Love that. But before we get into how those special editions, which you can already see over my shoulder, look, we're going to get into first the last book in the Red Rising trilogy, Morning Star. I'm aware there's more Red Rising books, and I do plan on reading those because this trilogy is damn good. I did not love the first book, though. That's kind of well known. It's been interesting to see how I think Pierce Brown has improved with each step of this trilogy, and Morning Star, in my opinion, is the best of the three. And it's rare you can say that, right? Like, it's not often you can say the best of a trilogy is the last one, but for me here, it actually quite clearly was. Morning Star is kind of Pierce Brown stepping up his game once again. I think the biggest difference is going to be between book 1 and 2, but 2 to 3 was once again an improvement. He's someone whose prose have always impressed me, but especially his development of his characters and reaching conclusions in this third book that were extraordinarily satisfying was brilliant. Like, Pierce Brown, wow, you know how to end a story, which even among some of the greats for the fantasy, sci-fi, what have you genres is not always there. I mean, it's kind of like an expectation even among fantasy fans and sci-fi fans at this point that there can be a great series, you just have to get ready for the ending to be but when it's got a good ending, man. Oh! So let's go ahead and get into why Morning Star was such a home run. The drama delivery. This isn't something I often talk about because it's usually not anything that stands out. Usually, like, authors are good enough at delivering their stakes, the intense moments, but Pierce Brown, it's like he writes with a wand when it comes to making you feel what he wants you to feel in the moment. It's beautiful to experience, honestly, whether it's great sadness or joy. It again comes down to his prose usage, but I also think his kind of just pacing as an author. He is extremely tactful, and where he chooses to focus his authorial lens, point your head as the reader, and how you take in what the characters are experiencing and feeling, directly or indirectly, all of that really comes together to make Red Rising one of the most emotional sci-fi experiences I've ever had. Odd praise. I hope what I just pointed out makes sense to people. It's actually just a beautiful, beautiful read for being such a violent and, heartbreaking book at times. Cut in. One of the best praises I can give when it comes to a book's pacing is I never felt it. And that's actually the case with Golden Sun and Morning Star. I just, at the end of the book, had to think back and went, wow, that went by really, really fast, but it never felt rushed, it never felt slow, it just felt appropriate. So I just want to put that in here because I forgot to say it, but yeah, yes, very, 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 very well paced. The strongest appeal of Morning Star and Golden Sun as well is going to be the team dynamic and Pierce Brown's work with character. I do not think these were nearly as strong in the first book, Red Rising, but they are core, fundamental, appealing pillars of the second and third book to me, especially in Morning Star. Good Lord, did I find every character's personality to be popping out of the page, just bubbling, and being one of the main driving forces of why you're going to really hesitate to ever put down this book while you're reading it. And the relationships, dynamics, understanding, hatred, love, appreciation, respect between each character is something Pierce Brown clearly fully understands as he goes page by page, but I also would suspect had very well planned out how these relationships would evolve. I'm not sure if he's a plotter or a pantser, or whatever you call it as a writer, but it seems like he had a very vivid image of how these relationships were going to end. And with the extreme dramatic events, like Red Wedding level things happening within Red Rising, you need to be able to pull that off. You need to know how everyone's going to feel about everyone and have a plan to really execute those. And that's where Pierce Brown's prose come in to really enhance that experience. It's the vehicle in which you're delivered all this information, and I'm a bit floored by how well as a writer Pierce Brown is able to almost hypnotize you as the reader with how he writes, his characters speak, their inclinations, the small details. Vocabulary is so on point. In my Golden Sun review, I took note of just how well Pierce Brown names things and can just craft a feeling through calling something. I specifically noted Iron Rain, and I was like, that just sounds so cool. It continues to live up here. Even the Moon Lords of Jupiter. I felt that a little. All right, these are some mighty people. I like it. But it's not just, of course, how these people are interacting with each other. It's the individuals themselves. Darrow is going through just mountains of trauma, and that's reflected in who he is. He's not someone who's going to walk away from this unscathed physically and emotionally. That's a very basic thing of crafting a protagonist I care about that somehow authors are still failing. They'll have a protagonist who goes through several books of horrific events, and at the end, they look and feel exactly the same at the beginning. No. Darrow, from book one, has been going through the gauntlet, and Morning Star just shows him rising in a way where you're like, yes, this feels like the strongest form of Darrow yet. He is beautiful. He is fully fleshed out, evolved, but it's not that simple because you also know he is severely damaged. It comes through in basically every interaction he has. These events have not left him the whole man he should be. And this is also physically reflected. I'm not getting into spoilers, but this guy takes damage. And even the people around him, it's not just Darrow. Severo is someone who, yeah, he can be a bit of a comedic relief. He's engaging on each and every page. I really love seeing him change and evolve as a character, stepping up in this book, especially in some key ways, being someone who's almost taking a Darrow role at times. But yeah, obviously the world around these people still weighs on them, and they know they're going up against monolithic odds. I am going to talk a little bit about spoilers for Morning Star in a minute, but I'll just say a couple more small criticisms that I can manage to get through without getting to spoilers first, because this wasn't a perfect book. There was one element the protagonists needed to go up against the big opposition here, and it did feel like a little bit of that element was just made for this book, and it was a bit easy for them to get it, and it suddenly evened the odds enough to be realistic for the final fight. And I just wish that had been more subtly built up, hinted at, and not just here's the people thing you need to help even this out and do the things to get them now, otherwise you won't be able to win. It was you could have done, granted the way they finally get it was fun and a very good character usage of getting it, but the element itself I just would have liked to be a bit less convenient, a bit more built up. And a couple pieces of praise I've said in the previous books, but I want to just put here as well again. Very few people write action as well as Pierce Brown. I mean, you are going to physically react to some of the ways that he is going to communicate violence in the page on the small or larger scale. All areas, all aspects of battle, of fighting, Pierce Brown executes extremely well, from the one-on-one to the full-scale battle. But I'm gonna go ahead and get into mild spoilers for Morning Star, so if you want to, go ahead and skip to the time code thing, bloopity bloppity blarp, to look at the actual review of just the special editions. Those are gonna be talked about, and you can check that out. But I'll go ahead. Spoilers, 3, 2, 1. Darrow turns out to be a polar bear. Okay, I hope you're gone so we can get to the actual spoilers now. That'd be a twist, though. That'd be a twisty twist. Okay, so specifically regarding what I was speaking on, the element that was a bit convenient, the Moon Lords of Jupiter. I liked their usage. I liked who they were, as an element in the book. Great. Pierce Brown doesn't really have any elements here that feel out of place or not well realized, but it's just a bit okay, there's these people, they're gonna join you because you outsmart them and things, manipulation, and now you actually have the possible odds to get done what you need to get done. I wish it had been a little less just, okay, in this book, these people are here and they're way. You know what I mean? That's just a small thing, but it's there for me. And the ending of this book was so happy. I didn't want to say this in the spoiler free, but this is a happy ending. I would have put thousands of dollars down that this would have at least been a bitter ending, maybe not like a heartbreak, but a bitter one. But here it's Darrow has a kid, which I kind of saw coming, but like I had a moment of like, is this turning into like the "and you're a daddy" what moment? But it still worked. It didn't feel out of place. Like I liked it. It was just really, wow, Darrow lived. A bunch of people lived that I thought would die. Really, like there's not a horrible amount of casualties in this final book. Granted, the second book makes up for that. But we're seeing, you know, everything be resolved. This is a book that managed to make me go, yes, people using terrorist tactics to accomplish their goals. Keep it going. Get rid of that horrible Senate. It feels weird rooting for the good guys in like some ways if you don't have the full context. But seeing Mustang take on the role she did, seeing Darrow have like this, I'm going to make a better world for my child ending. If you had told me that was the ending at the beginning, I wouldn't have thought it would have tonally made sense. I wouldn't have thought I would have really believed in it as a reader. But no, because of that dramatic control I think Pierce Brown demonstrates, for me it absolutely worked. This is me remembering the nukes. Okay, I wasn't that happy of it. Severo is probably my favorite character of this book. I didn't want to get too much into him because I feel like it's a spoiler to talk about like Severo's in it a lot. Severo, oh my god. How can you not love that man? Like him stepping up for a leadership role, him also continuing to be like such a good friend to Darrow while being a weird mother. This guy is what? I've had a friend like that where you're like, I love you, man, but you need to not do what you do sometimes. So I really enjoyed Severo. And that actually ties it into the beginning. Having Darrow believed to be dead, have him go through, I think it was like, what, a year of pain and torture, have him just being beat the hell down and come out. Most protagonists, I wouldn't have really believed they could come out from that. I mean, granted, Darrow is showing signs of, you know, going through it, but he still comes out ready, willing, and able to fight. And very few protagonists I would have believed that. But him I do, because that character is just iconic in my mind now. Like, that is such a good realization of that type of character. I feel like that's partially because when a lot of people are writing the revenge tale, when they're writing the I need to burn it all down guy, they forget to give them moments of humanity. They forget to give them real relationships. They forget to give them other driving, factors aside just this anger inside of them, and anger becomes cold, and so it kind of becomes unbelievable to see them just be driven by this one thing. But Darrow is given new and new and new inspiration constantly, and he has relationships that are real on all sides, and so it's kind of, you're always invested to see where he's going to go. And then the conclusion with the jackal, oh my god, I loved it. So talk about someone you make me hate as a reader. Like, I want him to die the worst death, but having him have his tongue pulled from his skull, all the yes. I reread it multiple times because I just wanted to experience in that moment, and it felt great. And a double flip happens with Cassius that, again, under any other author, I'm not sure would have landed. But Pierce Brown seems so close to these characters as a writer, so among them, that he was able to do a Cassius betray, and I have questions, but it doesn't feel unmotivated. It doesn't feel just convenient. It makes sense. So yeah, Morning Star, I am extremely positive on. And I'm going to go ahead and bring back in the spoiler-free people here to say, for Morning Star, I'm feeling a pretty solid 9 out of 10. This was damn enjoyable. Beautiful. Loved it, loved it, loved it. But let's go ahead and transition to my review of the special editions. God, these scissors are dull. Ladies and gentlemen, in this box rests some books. Books that I have been reading and reviewing here on the channel for quite some time. Juniper, as I was wrapping up and finishing Red Rising, said, hey, would you like some special editions to show to your fans? And I was like, yeah. I put out a poll recently, and most of you guys were like, we would indeed like you to continue to review special editions. So now I am going to continue to do that with some Red Rising books. So in this box there are Lord of the Rings special, no, Red Rising special editions. There's so much recyclable paper, which I will recycle. And again, we have a nice little pamphlet here saying that you should indeed place the covers on your book, display them as they're meant to be displayed, otherwise they won't be in order. Juniper, who complained about that? I need to know. Who called and was like, I got the Lord of the Rings, but it's not the picture. And then you were like, hey, is it Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King? And they were like, well, I didn't put the covers on in the first place. Oh, my lord. Yeah. But these ones have already been placed on. And now we have a trilogy, meaning there's 1, 2, 3. Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star. Let's take a look at what Juniper has decided to give us. And unlike when we did the Wheel of Time Juniper editions here, I doubt they're gonna be willing to change anything because those were like pre-releases, and I think they honestly sent those to me to get feedback from Wheel of Time fans. Smart move, you got it. But these ones were already available for you to get today, right now. They're also upside down, and that's the spine. So I'm gonna have some high quality images on the screen so you can go ahead and look at the spine. It's got some nice looking art there of a nice little planetary landscape with a city, minimal, I love me some minimal, and a very interesting font saying Red Rising. It's really weird how like a font can actually like fit a tone, you know what I mean? Like this font saying Red Rising, that looks pretty good. This font saying Red Rising, now it's a cartoon. I don't get, it's weird. Shapes affect our mood. And then each cover has this more like minimal black edition of the cityscape, and they've decided to go with the same art for each cover. Some people like that, some don't. I get it. I actually kind of like the uniformity approach they have there. It's the same thing they did with the Wheel of Times and a few other of the series that they have available. I enjoy the minimalism, and it kind of blends in with the font really well. I like all of that, and it is actually the same picture that's on the spine, just no colored added in. It actually really fits the aesthetic of the series, I think. And I see some misconceptions around Juniper a lot where people are saying like, oh, these aren't like the full book. No, these are jackets you buy for the standard like mass hardback that's available to make yours stand out, be different, and be really beautiful on the shelf. Hence why I think they put most of their focus most of the time on the spine. And there's the added bonus feature where Juniper covers are like super strong. You can't rip them very easily. I think they also have like water resistance and like fire retardation on them, which is great. So these are just like investments in the sense that you want your bookshelf to be up to like booktuber quality, someone who really like shows it off and has that aesthetic appearance. And for Red Rising fans, I think that's a pretty great cover for them. Yeah, I wish there'd been like a little bit of difference in each of the art, but I'm happy with it overall. I'm feeling a solid 7 out of 10 for these. They fit the aesthetic of the series. It's decent art. I like the fonts, and it's a Juniper cover. So it's affordable if you have the hardbacks already, or you can get them with the hardbacks and complete your Red Rising set today. So this is actually not an official sponsor. They're not paying for this spot. They just were like, hey, do you want these to include in your review? No charge to you. And I was like, yeah. Sure. Is my audience going to get a discount code? And they were like, yeah, sure. So if you use the Goblin15 on checkout, you will go ahead and get 15% off store-wide for Juniper books. And if you want the Red Rising ones, they get the seal of approval from me. They're pretty darn nice looking. I enjoy them. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.